We are live. Hey, all, welcome to the Export Fundas podcast. I'm Nikhil. Joining me is Dr. Jagat Shah. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's get straight into today's episode, something which I'm sure every single one of you is thinking of: the state of tariffs across the globe. The state of tariffs of what's going on between US and China, what's happening for the overall global economy, and how you as an exporter can take advantage of the situation. Jagatji, before we get started, any context you'd like to give about this particular topic, a hot topic?
Yeah, thanks, Nikhil. Good to be back on the podcast. Nikhil, you remember I want to start with this because this is very positive. You remember we did a program on Global Capability Center (GCC), a podcast, and you will recall that time I had said that it's going to be a game changer. Today, the government of India data has come. Uh, our exports of India last year was $824 billion. Out of that, $387 billion is services export, right? And it has grown by 14%, and majority of the growth has come from GCCs. So that's a very interesting take on our last episode. Uh, on the tariff side, of course, I mean it's a discussion, and the whole world is not just India. The whole world is talking about it because it's a shake-up. It's a shake-up of the system which was running for many years, and whenever you shake up anything, it's naturally going to have repercussions. So we will talk
So,
about it.
absolutely. So, let's get started. The absolute first thing I want to discuss is the current state of tariffs, the perspective from the US, the global perspective. And roughly, there's this word which comes up a lot in economy, which is protectionism, right? So how do these tariffs, sort of shift us towards that protectionism mindset, and what does it really mean for the global supply chain?
Yeah. So Nikhil, one thing all entrepreneurs know and understand, and all over the world, and which is now very common, is that now the permanent constant is change. And either you can be a victim of change or you can be an agent of change. Okay. So let's take a little go into an understanding of what's happening in the world today. Today, the world economy is around $112 trillion. Out of that, the largest economy is US economy, which is $27 trillion. It has always been, and it will always remain, is my understanding. China is $19 trillion. Entire Europe put together is $18 trillion. And out of that, Germany is $4.4 trillion, and Japan is 4.2 trillion, and India has touched $4 trillion. Right? We are the fifth largest economy. Now, let us look at three. See, the tariff, there is three very important countries: US, India, and China. So we have to look at this perspective. Of course, many other regions and countries are related, but from Indian perspective, India's total export to China last year was $14.25 billion, and India's import from China was $113 billion. 113. Look at the trade deficit, and it has been growing for last several years. So the total trade between India and China is $128 billion. Okay, export and import together. How is it with US? It is reverse. India's export to US is $86 billion, and India's import from US is $45 billion. So we are a trade surplus with US, and total trade is $132 billion. So understand, China total trade with India 128 billion, US 132 billion. They're almost same. This needs to change first, and our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, has on meetings with Trump said and told Indian companies that we should go to $500 billion trade by 2030 with US. Now, third aspect you look at India's US export to China. We spoke of India. Now, US export to China is 143 billion, and US import from China is 438 billion. So, US has trade deficit with both India and China. Okay, and total trade between India and China is 582 billion. And if we are targeting 500 billion by 2030 with US, which is right now 132 billion, a lot of this we should take advantage from the current situation between US, China, and India, right? So this is the background about what, and to me this tariffs which have been put, they are more of a bump. It is more of a bump than a blockade. You know, let me add some more interesting figures. China's total export to the whole world is $3,577 billion last year, and India's export to the whole world last year was 824 billion. My point is, because of this situation of tariffs, particularly on China, and of course also on India, but on China it is huge. Out of $3,577 billion, as I already told you, around $438 billion is Chinese export to US. Just 10%, just 10% of that, if we are able to take advantage, that will be $45 billion of what China is already exporting to US. Now you add $45 billion to our exports to US and look at the figure, then we are on way to $500 billion by 2030. Now the question is, how do we do that? Right? Now, just giving you a background to this tariff issue, way back in 1948, there was a general agreement on trade and tariffs called GATT. And in 1995, WTO was set up, which is World Trade Organization. It is very, very interesting today. The very objective of setting up WTO was to facilitate free and fair international trade. And you know who are the two founders of that? USA and India were founding members. China joined WTO only in 2001, very late. We were the two founding members. Today, I think to me that WTO has gone for a six. Because is it a free and fair international trade for which it was set up? Okay. And the idea was facilitating smooth trade flows to resolve trade issues between countries. I don't see any role today WTO is playing on that, because it's now bilateral, right? And US is leading that, providing a forum for trade negotiations. Today, the negotiations are direct between every country and US. WTO is not in picture. Settling trade disputes. US, China, we all know that China follows a lot of practices which are not WTO compliant. But has the role of trade dispute been played? Ensuring transparency, helping developing countries integrate into global trading system. So all this, now the focus is on free trade agreements, right? I think this tariff move by the US government is part of a broader strategy to address the persistent US trade deficit and the perceived unfair trade practices, particularly of China, right? But the entire world is impacted by that. And these new tariffs have led to very significant disruption in global supply chain. Just yesterday, President Trump, in one of the speech, was saying, right, in one of his press conference, was saying that let our children play with two dolls instead of 30, right? So there is that itself is a reflection of how the supply chain are being disturbed, the shipping costs are going up, and the situation is very similar to COVID-19 in terms of shipping costs. The retail impact, the companies like Amazon, Walmart, and Target have internally floated documents which says that 20% import cargo is going to go down in 2025, and the logistics strain which is taking place on that. So This is what is the but what is the corporate response to this, right? And this is very interesting because it has got a strategic shift on it. So Apple, for example, now Apple has already said that they will be moving their iPhone manufacturing from China to some other countries, and India is most likely beneficiary because we already have one of those. And in fact, second highest export after pharmaceutical from India is smartphones now. And Whirlpool is also 80% of their production they are planning to move. So that's the global impact which is taking place. And while we have to understand that the aim of the tariff is to bolster domestic industry in USA by two things: exporting more and doing manufacturing in US, getting the companies to do manufacturing in US. And but it is going to lead to a short term slowdown, which is already we saw. I was reading yesterday again a report that first time in a few last few years the US economy has contracted, right? So I mean, in summary, if I have to conclude to your question, is that it's a strategic pivot towards protectionism, so that free and fair trade for which WTO was set up, I don't know how relevant it is, and it will have far-reaching impact on global supply chains and economic dynamics. See, China had its own economic dynamics, different, and US has suffered because of that, right? And that is the background to the tariff part from a global perspective. We will talk more on the India part of it.
So, before I move to the next part, you mentioned US has suffered because of it. I mean, what do you mean by this?
No, it's a short term because see, very simple. From the data you saw that US is importing so much from China. So what are they importing? They are importing raw materials. They are importing finished products. So naturally, you cannot suddenly 500. I mean 438 billion dollar of goods and services, goods particularly, you cannot divert straight away in 3 months to some another country. So naturally, whatever was being imported is not going to come, and that is where a very interesting statement I found from President Trump that let American children play with 2 dolls rather than 30 dolls.
Yeah.
That's the logic. That's the logic that no, not so many dolls will come. I mean toys. So naturally, there is a sacrifice, no, which is
So I
going to
think
take place.
I think the sort of bet which he may be making is that for 100 days or maybe whatever a year, there's going to be pain and suffering. But then over the next
Correct.
he has a 4 year presidency. So over the next two, three,
Correct.
4 years, he'll end up sort of winning the longer battle.
Correct, correct. These things are strategic. See, every strategic thing is long term. I do not see any other situation where the trade deficit of US, particularly with China, can come down. I do not see any other any other way, right? So this is I think it's a very drastic step, but you need guts to do that. And I think President Trump is a business person, and he showed the guts, and he had actually promised. I mean, it should not come as a surprise to anybody in the world. He had promised in his election campaign. He kept saying,
Yeah.
I will put 100%. Look, listen to his campaign speeches. He said, I'll put 100% tariff. So
Perfect.
he's just fulfilling his campaign promises. So it is a very thought through steps.
Absolutely. So this is one part. I mean, just a small diversion from the topic, but this one part about Trump, you can say on the face of it, it'll appear that he's doing things in a very crass and a sort of a brutal way, but that is all just optics in my eyes. I think the
Right.
man is a genius.
Yeah, it's a style of everybody has their style of leadership, right?
Yeah.
Every leader have their style of leadership. So if in the campaign he had talked about this and he got voted, so naturally he
He has
feels
to
that
deliver.
his
Yeah.
electoral wants to see what he will do on deliverables.
So let's move to the next point relevant to our audience, which is India's tariff landscape. So India has had a sort of instinct of protectionism for quite some time, right? We for a very long time we had a lot of these socialist policies, which I think still come and bite us in the back, and they've always been protectionists. Even after the 1990s, when the markets opened up, that protectionism still, you can see it appear very often. Uh, how do you maintain export competitiveness with that sort of approach, that attitude? Uh, what would you say about the overall landscape and this protectionist attitude we have?
So Nikhil, see, India doesn't have to choose between protectionism and export growth. India doesn't have to choose. We have to pursue a strategic openness that safeguards key sectors while enabling global competitiveness. Now, when we talk of competitiveness, I have always defined competitiveness in four factors: efficiently create goods and services which meet global market demand, leading to rising living standard for everybody in the society and which is sustainable into the future. So these four elements of competitiveness have to be brought into entire economic ecosystem of India, from government to private sector to multinationals to small medium enterprise, service sector, manufacturing, trading, our education system, everything. So these are the four parameters, and then triple helix of competitiveness. This is another element. So the government, academia, and industry linkage. The academia and industry linkage in India is weak. If I have to say one of the biggest reasons of American success, I would say the academia industry linkage in the US. In India, the government academia is okay, the government industry is okay, but academia industry is weak. So we have to strengthen that. Right now, what do we do to do all of that? And what do we do to create this competitiveness where we don't have to choose between protectionism and export growth, but pursue a strategic openness? So, what is a strategic openness? For example, we can have a calibrated tariff policy. See that the moment Trump said that it will be like product to product, like whatever you are reciprocal duty, whatever you are charging us, we will charge you. So that is a very calibrated tariff policy, and we can also have that kind of a balance. For example, whatever is non-essential, and easily substitutable products, you know, over so many years, particularly last 10 years, we have had a lot of import substitution success under Make in India, and also the production linked incentive schemes. And at the same time we have to avoid overprotection, right? That makes domestic industry inefficient. See, overprotection makes our domestic industry inefficient and uncompetitive. Then where is the question of export? If our companies would not be competitive, there is no question that our export will grow. Now I will give you a classic case of Harley Davidson bike company of US. India doesn't make that type of a equivalent bike. So why we are having one so much of high import duty? Whom are we protecting? We don't make. So that is an example of a balanced, tariff selectivity. Second is very important is export oriented industrial policies we should have, right? So production linked incentive schemes. There are many sectors in which it has been brought, but not in all. I, it should be brought to every sector, and to whatever sectors it was brought, it has primarily been successful. It has been successful. So why not bring it to all the sectors, because it will boost manufacturing with export targets. So that is something which has to be done, and special economic zones with plug and play industrial parks. See, this is one big difference between China and India: the ease of doing business. You ask any entrepreneur in India who has a business in India and in China. I think it doesn't require some big strategic thinking. Just ask 20 entrepreneurs who are doing manufacturing in India as well as in China, even if it is foreign companies or Indian companies. You may say foreign companies would be biased. Ask Indian companies. Ask them what is the difference, and you will come to know. You don't have to do a big report on that ease of doing business, and you will know what is the difference. So, plug and play industrial park where it should be very very easy for industries to come and start. You know, so that is something which has to be done, and then free trade agreement with key markets. So now, as I told you, WTO was all about free and fair international trade, but I don't know how with this all the Trump's initiative how it is going. But we are already negotiating with US government also free trade agreement, which is very good. I don't think India would have ever been able to sign a free trade agreement with US in next 5 years if this situation would not have come. Now we are hastening, we are now rushing to do it, and it will happen. It will happen eventually because there is no other way, right? There will be give and take. Both will have to give something and get something. It is very natural in any negotiation. So free trade agreement directly talking, we are also talking to Europe. We have already signed up with Australia, we have signed up with UAE, we are talking to UK, ASEAN countries. So all our major trading partners, we are talking one to one. And then of course we should also try to activate WTO because it is still not defunct after all this, you know dust settles down. WTO will have its role to play, and we should have global institutions who should always be arbiter of justice and fairness. So play a proactive role in WTO negotiations without isolating from global trade norms. You know, then another very interesting element is invest in supply chain resilience. India should invest in supply chain resilience. What is that? Local value addition. Local value addition to global value chains. And aggressively promote China plus one strategy. We have been talking of China plus one for 10 years, right? But China plus one is nothing but ease of doing business. Companies will leave China and come to India if the similar ease of doing business is created. I was just telling you, IceGate, our IceGate customs portal. So many times, my students, I run this international business school, and we have trained 6,500 companies who are exporting last 27 years. So every day I get phone call that IceGate portal is down. I mean, that is so basic. That is such a basic infrastructure. Our GST is so good, has been set up. Initially, we had challenges. Every country has. Even when Obama launched Obama Healthcare, their portal has crashed on the first day. That happens. We understand when it is starting. Starting glitches are there, but it should not be a regular thing. We should sort it out. We are a good IT country. We are exporting IT to all over the world, right? So that is an example of how to attract companies through ease of doing business, and it has to be on the field, demonstrable, not on paper. Support MSMEs and innovation. See, I've always said innovation is do one thing better than anyone else. Now, you will be surprised, Nikhil. In my understanding, I may be wrong. Innovation never happens in a large company. Innovations always happen. Innovations always happen in a small medium enterprise, because large companies have a lot of hierarchy of decision making. Innovation is spontaneous. It has to get it's, and that is why you will see a lot of MNCs, a lot of big companies, they buy out innovative companies, they buy out startups. You will be surprised. I read somewhere, oh, this company's sales is $80,000, and that company was bought over by an MNC for $300 million. I said $80,000 sales and $300 million they were bought out. They are just buying the innovation of that company, and then they will build on it, and they know their future revenue which will come out. So my point is support SME in India from innovation perspective. That is how you will build the resilience towards global value chain, because it has to be homegrown. It has to come from within our country,
See,
right?
this is something where every time you hear any good economist, they will always say focus on the small and medium business, right? You're also saying as an exporter, that hey, you got to focus on the small and medium businesses. However, at least in India, it always feels like only the big guys end up getting a lot of the support. I don't know why that is the case. I mean, are they not seeing the same? Are they not getting the same advice from people?
That's very complicated, because I mean, but at the same time, we have to understand that 40% of India's export, I think, is done by SMEs, and
Exactly.
it's a large contributor to employment sector. But that's something which is very,
Deserves an episode onto itself.
yeah, no, yeah, right. But correct, you are right. I mean, so my point is MSME and innovation. Right now, for example, I have seen so many years I have been saying there should be a first time exporter incentive. First time whoever is exporting, there should be a good, very large incentive. Recently, I was told by someone there is one. Even I am not aware. We have to educate. If there is some such thing, we have to educate. Export incentives, tech upgrades, easier credit, and it's good. Yesterday or just day before yesterday, the government of India has again come out with a interest equalization, interest subsidization scheme for exporters. So that is good, but it has to be more practical. There should be no ifs and buts. There should be not be like 100 conditions which no entrepreneur will go after. They'll say, leave this aside. Who has got the time to do all this paperwork? Right? So make it easy, whatever new schemes are coming, and encourage digital transformation in small medium enterprise. See, one thing I will tell, government of India has done wonderful work with digitalizing its own operations. They have done a very good work. I think it's an example in the world. Every country is looking to India's success. We need to motivate our small medium enterprises in India to digitalize, to have a digital transformation, not only in terms of operations but in marketing collateral. See, today, because of this US China tariff issue, the day it was implemented 145%, I started getting so many calls from US almost all of the night that can you suggest an Indian company from whom I can buy this, I can buy that, because now my supply chain from China is disturbed. And when I suggested some companies, they saw and they replied, "Are you sure this company will be able to supply to me?" Though I know that's a very good company, but our digital presentation is weak. Our website, our marketing collateral, our brochures, our videos of how we. So that is very critical. And brand India. So brand India marketing should be there. In my training, I always tell companies, never ever start talking about your company and your product. First, start talking about India, the success story of India in terms of its digital transformation as a country. The kind of UPI transactions we are doing, the digital transactions which we are doing is double of China and US put together. So there are so many success stories of India. Let's talk about that. So brand India, we should have a talking points about, talking about how India is becoming a brand as a country, and also target on high value exports like electronics and then technical textiles and pharmaceutical formulations. So that is something which I think we should be doing. And of course, it's a very so many hundreds and things can be done, but I have just tried to, based on my experience of 27 years working with small medium enterprise large companies in India, abroad, all over the world, and looking at particularly the exporting community which we have built, through whom we work a lot through our alumni. This is what I feel we need to do. Yeah, Nikhil.
So this is quite interesting. The fact that even when you would recommend a company to your connects, they would they would be like, "Are you sure?" So that's something which all of us have to ponder about. Let's continue to the next part, which is challenges of Indian exporters. So Jagatji, you work with exporters very closely. You mentioned some small challenges they face, but in this scenario of tariffs, what sort of barriers are you foreseeing Indian exporters have? How do you think they should look to adapt to these barriers? Any new barriers or issues which you think they will run into?
See, let me tell you. See, I always speak on data because I believe the data is the new oil, right? Middle East countries became rich because of the oil, and data is the new oil. If we know how to mine data and if we know how to analyze data, we can be very competitive. Of all the exports of India to every country in the world last year, 18% went to US, okay, which is highest. But let us not forget, 82% went to non-US. So 82% is non-US. So this current tariff issue is US related. But what about that 82%? And now there, let me bring you a very interesting element. I don't know whether our policymakers are working on it. Because of this tariff, now China's competition is going to increase for India in though that 82% market. You understand? Because China is going to dump, China is going to sell at whatever price because its US market is stopped, is disturbed. Stopped almost 145% means what? Right? So so that you must have read the president of China Xi Jinping, he went to Asian countries on a visit within a week of the tariff for what? To do what? Right?
He's going
This is
after
what.
your he's going
Correct.
after your other markets.
Correct. I mean, not really India centric, but it's their US counter, right? So China's competition is going to increase. Now that is the hurdle to India. Now, how do you overcome that? Okay. So so we can actually, you know, the potential non-tariff barriers like stricter quality checks and value addition. So, for example, it could happen that a lot of products of China may come to India from other countries, and that is why we should have this stricter quality check and the 35% minimum value addition factor also on it. And global supply chain disruptions are going to be a big challenge. Freight costs already going up, port delays, and critical input shortages. Now, this is interesting. So while we are telling, we are, trying to build relations with US, but the dependence on China, like for example, our highest export of India is pharmaceutical. Okay, and second highest is smartphones. So in pharmaceutical, the APIs, which is the basic raw material of formulations, is coming from China into India, and in electronics also. So if that gets disturbed, then we will have a big bottleneck on that. It is straight away going to impact India's export. So we should have a PLI scheme in pharma. In I mean, we should have been making those APIs here. And then another factor is the currency fluctuation. I think I am very sure our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, very very visionary and very thoughtful approach always he has had towards international business and relations with other countries. With every country where we are talking free trade agreement, we should be talking about rupee trade with them, so that this currency fluctuation impact, which we are able to negate, because a stronger rupee can reduce price competitiveness in US dollar based markets. And hedging cost will add to financial risk, right? Then another hurdle which many Indian exporters may face is compliance and certification complexity. So US regulations particularly require certification, like if it's a pharma, then FDA, electronics and electrical, then CE certification. In fact, Government of India should start a certification subsidy support for small medium enterprises for exports, because this is a big cost which actually stops small medium enterprise who have very good products, which are exportable, but there is a one time cost involved. In fact, Government of India can even launch a program of giving a loan for a particular certification without any interest, because ultimately it is going to increase export of India. It is like so many subsidies we have, right? We have so many subsidies, and without interest is the extreme, but maybe very low interest, that will motivate small medium enterprise to go after certifications. Otherwise, that fixed cost in the very beginning, without knowing whether you will get a market or not, SMEs are not ready to pay that. So that is one challenge. And then the limited trade agreement. So India lacks free trade agreements with US, Europe, all our major markets, and we are disadvantaged in terms of Mexico and Vietnam in that. So we should have some kind of a limited trade. Even if full-fledged trade, a free trade agreement is not achievable, we should try to have any kind of a limited trade agreement, truncated or whatever can be agreed faster, right? And then sixth point is ease of doing business. I already spoke about it, right? And uh, we have to uh, look at the ease of doing business in a better way that will facilitate small medium enterprise exports more, right? And diversify our market. See, I told in the beginning 18% export is to US, but 82% is where? It is to European Union, it is to Africa, Middle East, Southeast Asia, Latin America. There are no tariffs there. But what is our strategy? What is our approach? How are we going to increase exports to those countries, right? And then value added manufacturing, where high value added products like specialty chemicals, and then electronics, branded garments, and processed foods. That is something which we will not have competition like Ayurvedic, a lot of Ayurvedic supplements, organic food, right? And invest in quality and certification, as I told. There should be a subsidized certification approach, and encourage Indian companies to go after GMP, HACCP, and ISO to avoid rejections, because that is also a big challenge. And then leverage government schemes, the PLI scheme, the RODTEP scheme, right? And enhance supply chain resilience. We already spoke about it. So, Nikhil, what I would like to say is that exporters can build long-term US partnerships by aligning with American firms seeking China plus one suppliers, especially in sectors like technical textile, for example, auto components, IT services. Already we are doing good, pharmaceuticals, and between India and US, we should have a program of stock and sell warehousing, because this is what China did 20 years back. We can still do e-commerce. Setting up. I had read somewhere that government of India is planning 50 distribution hubs in 50 countries for e-commerce. We have to do it fast. Government of India is setting up Bharat Mart in Middle East, but we should do it fast. Today there is so much of technology in construction sector to build anything fast. That's what China does. So we should not keep waiting for that to happen. And uh, a lot of B2B meetings. Government of India, I think, is doing good job with uh, you know the kind of buyer seller meets which are being organized and inviting foreign companies to India. And government of India is funding that part, which is very good, because when they come to India, rather than we going there, they can see our manufacturing setup of the companies and get more confidence, because they are not getting that confidence with digital presence, right? But maybe by actually looking at the facilities, they will get the confidence, because our facilities are good that way, but we are not projecting it digitally well.
Yeah, yeah. As I mean, I'll tell you. Uh, I, so I mean, for a lot of our audience, they'll know this. We run a video marketing company. It is very surprising when we run into certain customers of ours who have these state-of-the-art facilities. They've spent tens or hundreds of crores even sometimes, and they won't be a photo or a single video of that facility uploaded anywhere. It's such a surprise always. But that's a topic for another discussion. So let's continue to the next part, which is opportunities and actionable strategies for some of the exporters, right? Apart from the other barriers which the government will push. So for exporters, right? How can Indian exporters particularly turn this tariff into an opportunity, and some practical steps they can take today, right now, to make sure that they're able to take advantage of this market which is upcoming?
Yeah, Nikhil. So So, entrepreneur, see, understand in India, the center of Indian economy is the entrepreneur. In China, the center of Chinese economy is the state. So in India, the entrepreneur will have to take that lead. And of course, government is there. Government of India is supporting. It will create that ecosystem. But government of India cannot play an equivalent role which the Chinese government plays in their economy. Because I don't know if that is sustainable over long run. Today, China may be looking very good, high GDP, big contribution, but in history of nations, it takes hundreds of years to analyze. So market driven economy like India, entrepreneur led economy like India is something which is sustainable and long term. So the entrepreneur, for example, like I said, we must try to, the entrepreneur should see that if suppose somebody is in food business, okay, they should see that in food business there is too much competition, but can we go into organic food business and get certifications and do marketing promotion, because that is high value. Then you are not impacted by the price competition of China. Same way Ayurvedic products, China doesn't make Ayurvedic products, right? But they have equivalent herbal products, and their herbal products export is 40 times more than India's Ayurvedic product export. Then technical specialty textiles we are good at, engineering components, because these are less price sensitive products, right? And move away from commoditized exports to innovation driven categories. So as I earlier said, innovation is critical. Get into that, because that will require R&D investment, and the younger generation today is doing very well. There is a company I know. So t-shirt, for example, t-shirt is a commodity, but sold at a very very low price, hardly $3 or something in exports, wholesale. But there is a company which made a T-shirt which you will wear in hot conditions, it will become cold, and in cold condition it will become hot. Now that is innovation driven product, and they are selling it for $40, right? So that is something, but it took them 1.5 years to do R&D, uh, right? So, and then another, as I said earlier, brand India. Indian companies should work on brand India. India is now very well recognized. Our Prime Minister face is recognized as a reform-led leader, and very, very high ratings within the country, in terms of people's acceptability, and all over the world. So we should encash on that as a country, brand India, and for positioning our quality craftsmanship, our sustainability, our culture-rich goods. We must promote culture-rich goods of India with democracy. And I always use this word in my guidance to my students. Always use the word free world. That we are free world. I always tell Americans, you are talking about uh, human rights violations in China, but you are buying Chinese goods. So you are supporting that. What is all this talk about human right violation? Through trade, you are supporting that. How can you have this double standard? India is a free world. India is a democratic country. But are we marketing it like that? We have to talk to companies that we are from free world. Yes, our price is a little more than China. But are you ready to talk about a free world economy? Or you just want, then don't talk about human rights and other issues. Why so much of noise on that, right?
You-
So,
You're
and
you're
trust Ferdinand.
basically you're basically
Yeah.
just playing the recorder of the sort of posturing which the West does a lot.
Yes, it does, and it is also actually a non-trade barrier for India. So many times it happens, India becomes a victim. But free world, we are a free world, and the world should be working with a free world economy rather than a state-driven economy. And as I said, entrepreneur is the center of Indian economy, and we have to promote this. I always tell my students, talk about brand India, talk about free world, which is India, and talk about our culture-rich goods, right? So same way like wellness products, wellness today, happiness. is a very important factor. Ethical fashion. We say, for example, look at textile. We should have eucalyptus tree fiber based shirts and trousers and women dress material, banana fiber towels. We should promote those type of products and businesses which has premium pricing. Right. Then the third aspect is export friendly markets, so free trade leverage, where now today Australia. Okay. For example, Australia, we have 96% of the Indian goods to Australia is duty free. But I don't see the aggression in Indian companies to explore Australia as a market. In fact, just to give this message to all the people listening, is Australia is organizing a World Congress in September, first week, and we are also going to take part in that as an institute. And I will encourage people to go there and explore, because people are coming from so many countries. So wherever we have already got the free trade agreement, we should explore it more aggressively and and scale into new zones in those countries. And exporters can co-locate. Actually, they can also co-locate in free trade agreement countries to assemble or value add their products, there, and re-export to US, Europe, right, which tariff free. UAE is a very good example. I think today, I'm not sure about the percentage, but lowest tariff I think in the world is on UAE from US after this new tariff war. The fourth is collaborate with global buyers who are seeking China alternatives. So a lot of global buyers around the world are seeking China alternatives, but we have to collaborate with them. Don't look to them only as a partner. Tell them, okay, let's do R&D together, right? So there are so many factors which we can work with them. That is collaboration. Okay, collaboration is not just about them buying from you. And so India can become a China plus one sourcing hub by ensuring timely, compliant, and scalable supply. Remember, timely, compliant, and scalable supply. So timely is very much connected to ease of doing business also in India. And compliant. So compliant is about certifications and scalable supply. So uh, the companies who are doing well in India in the small medium enterprise should actually, all of them, I always tell in my training, that start a export division and focus on that. Start a office abroad. Put one member of your family outside India to manage it. It will take you to a different scale of doing business. The fifth point Indian companies can do is digital export and direct to consumer, right? E-commerce. So e-commerce approach is something, use platforms like Amazon Global, Etsy, Shopify, eBay to bypass some trade friction, right? And reach consumers directly. See, service sector in India has not been impacted by US tariffs. Okay. And build digitally savvy brands, make
So,
in India brands.
so this, by the way, it's for. We actually had a question about this, Jagatji, which was Mr. Kiran Kumar asking, "Do you think USA will impose tariffs on
No, I
IT
don't think.
services?"
I don't think. I don't think. Uh, Otherwise, it would have already been imported. See, this is a very thought through process. It is not a knee jerk thing,
Right.
right? So, if it was to be put, it would have already put it. I don't
Exactly.
think, right? And
So, and that's the space
yeah,
where that's still open. What's one of the reasons why services sector is still growing, 14%, as you said. And the
correct,
reason for that is also this: there's no tariff. Uh,
correct,
Indians are pretty good at this. So yeah,
correct. Yeah, it's a competitive area. I always tell manufacturing and trading companies in India and merchandise that look at whatever IT has done. IT has cracked the model of international business. We have to copy the same model for manufacturing and trading. We are not doing what IT companies have done, right? So and then role of Indian government also I want to speak about, Nikhil, to promote. So negotiate smart trade deals, which is already happening. Push for mutual recognition of standards and certifications. So while they insist on their certifications, we should also insist on that. And support through incentives, road tap, first time exporter scheme, I said, PLI, interest equalization, build export infrastructure, modern ports, logistics hubs, warehousing, testing labs. I know, Nikhil, still so many companies who have to send their products for testing outside India, because we don't have that testing facility here. That infrastructure we need to invest in. For a moment, you don't give subsidy, that's okay. You create infrastructure facility. No, how much cost we are already paying for that, and not only the cost of those testing, but also the delay in getting the order. And the
Yeah,
image
yeah,
of brand India is being disturbed, that India doesn't have this testing facility. We are launching satellite. What is it in a textile, in a testing facility lab that we cannot do? Right. So that's the investment we need to do. And of course, government has been doing amazing work in terms of ports, port development. If I'm not wrong, 85 new ports are under construction, where where all the kind of road infrastructure which has happened, the power sufficiency which is in India, all this has happened in 10 years, and logistics hubs. So we still need to target those areas where we have not done well, right? And customs digitalization, as I was talking about ice gate, very important. I'm telling you, almost every day I get calls. We must simply find out, no, the data must be there, that how many times ice gate is crashing and what is the reason, and so continuously for so many years. We should sort
right.
out the glitch. We are sorting out the glitch for the whole world through our IT services, right?
Yeah,
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 we can do that. And then skill development and technical upgrades. So train exporters on international compliance. Many exporters don't know about compliance and don't know what certifications are required, needed, what is the cost. They have good factory, they have good product, the pricing is good. Certification holds them back. Very important area. E-commerce, packaging, marketing, technical modernization subsidies. So, and export credit and insurance support. Affordable export insurance. So we should have, like ECGC, Government of India company is there which does insurance for credits, but it should be affordable. So on this point of yours, Nikhil, my final thought is that tariffs may close one door, but with innovation, market agility, which we have still not shown, and strategic policy backing from the Government of India, which is coming already, and Indian exporters can open many other markets and build resilient, globally competitive business in their processes. Yeah.
yeah. So, so the last question before I conclude, I think this is something which many people will be thinking about, which is see, we managed to become the global sort of service hub, right? So, what do you think India needs to do in the future going forward to be able to become a manufacturing hub as well? Or do you see that something like that happening? What does the future hold here?
No, so see, very, very clear that if India has to be a manufacturing hub, we have to create ease of doing business conditions, right? But, uh, you know, so for example, the key trends which are likely to shape our manufacturing is uh, China plus one strategy, of course, but invite American and other companies to come to India, but with shops, manufacturing, semiconductors already doing very well, EVs, right, and pharmaceuticals, and greater focus on strategic sectors. Like there is a very good government initiative. I don't know people know initiative on critical and emerging technology. It's called ISET, which is between India and US. And it is to boost collaboration in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, 5G, 6G, defense manufacturing, and say space tech. So this is the kind of greater focus on strategic sector which we need to have, and we need to get those type of companies into India. And my thought process has always been that we must also work with American small medium enterprises. See, the large companies in US, they have the wherewithal, they have choices to go to all over the world. Small medium enterprises in US, we must try to promote them to come to India, because that technology transfer which will take place, and at that size, which will actually build large companies, through JV between Indian and SMEs. Indian SMEs and American SMEs. And then, of course, the free trade agreement talks should be is in the right momentum, but it can be concluded. And services trade. So, services trade will grow very fast. Okay, so IT, fintech, healthcare, legal, education, consulting uh, to the US. So that we have already seen 14%, and all the digitally delivered models are going to do well and is already doing well. And you asked about manufacturing. I don't want to repeat, but our logistics hubs, there is a very good program called PM Gati Shakti. Then there is this for the sea transport Sagarmala. So those programs are running and they are doing well. Create smart industrial corridors like DMIC, the Delhi Mumbai Industrial Corridor, to attract global manufacturers. Ease of doing business. See, two areas in ease of doing business I did not speak so far. And if you want to increase manufacturing in India, faster land acquisition. It's a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge. And this is one of the reasons where China scored. They're so fast land acquisition because state is the center of their economy. And it was very, very fast and still is. So we have to do that, and easier labor laws. See, no company will come to India if labor laws are not amended. A lot of amendment has taken place, but there is certainly scope for more to do. And high tech manufacturing. So PLI for is there for so many sectors: medical devices, aerospace, and brand and build skill capital. Right, at the end of the day, it should not happen that you know we have done everything and we don't have the people, and then we may have to end up importing people to do those things. But build the skill capital in IoT, AI, aerospace engineering, renewable energy technologies, and the skill program should be matching to global value chains, right? And then resilient and green manufacturing. So sustainable manufacturing, net zero goals, carbon credits, and the now almost if you look at for Fortune 500 companies, all 500 of the Fortune 500 company, they prefer to work with suppliers who have strong environmental, social, governance credentials, ESG. It is a ESG audit they do. If you don't comply, they will not buy from you, right? So this is also one of the compliances I was talking about, which uh, India should build. So India's future, Nikhil, lies in becoming not just a seller of goods, okay, important, but a co-creator of innovation and a reliable industrial partner. So smart policy, quick action by business in the private sector, and long-term thinking could make India the next big global manufacturing powerhouse by 2030.
There you go, guys. That's all about tariffs. If you have any questions, of course, you can comment below. We're happy to take them. Uh, but yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. This is quite a dense episode, specifically from a tariff context. I hope that's the best part. If you missed any segment, you can just rewatch it. We went live, but the videos will be live on YouTube and LinkedIn as well. Jagatji, thank you so much for this. See
Welcome,
you
Nikhil.
all. See you all in our next episode. Bye, guys.
All the best.